At 2:13 in the morning, Mara Ellis watched a dead man check into the Belladonna Hotel. He crossed the marble lobby without luggage, rain glistening on the shoulders of his black coat. Silver threaded his hair at the temples. A thin scar divided his left eyebrow, exactly as it had in the newspaper photograph pinned inside the manager's office. Vittorio Moretti, international financier, suspected crime lord, buried 6 months ago in a closed casket funeral. Mara kept her hands still on the front desk. The man stopped beneath the chandelier and looked directly at her. Room 907. His voice was low, almost gentle. Mara glanced at the computer. That room is unavailable. I know. No irritation, no surprise. He slid a brass key across the counter. It was an old hotel key, heavy and tarnished, stamped with the number 907. The Belladonna had replaced its brass keys 20 years ago. Mara did not touch it. Behind the man, the revolving doors turned once, though no one entered. Across the street, a dark sedan idled beneath a broken street lamp. "Who gave you this?" she asked. Vittorio smiled without warmth. "Your father." The breath stopped in her throat. Her father had been dead for 11 years. Before Mara could speak, the elevator chimed. 3 men stepped out. The first wore a tailored charcoal suit, no tie, and the expression of someone who had never needed to raise his voice to be obeyed. He was tall, broad through the shoulders, with dark hair brushed away from a face that looked carved rather than born. Mara recognized him from whispers among the night staff. Dante Valenti, owner of the Belladonna Hotel. The public knew him as a private investor. The police knew him as a man they could never charge. The city knew better than to say his name after midnight. Dante's gaze moved from Mara to the brass key, then to Vittorio. For the first time, the older man's calm expression cracked. "You," Vittorio whispered. One of Dante's men reached beneath his jacket. Mara pressed the silent security alarm under the desk. Dante noticed. His eyes settled on her hand, then returned to Vittorio. "Leave the lobby," he said to his men. Neither moved. That wasn't a request. They obeyed, disappearing through the service corridor. Vittorio backed toward the revolving doors, but Dante blocked his path, without appearing to move quickly. 6 months, Dante said. "I watched them lower your coffin. You should have opened it." "I intended to." The lights went out. Darkness swallowed the chandelier, the desk, every gilded edge of the lobby. Mara heard the scrape of shoes, a sharp breath, then the crack of something heavy striking glass. She crouched behind the counter. A hand closed around her wrist. Mara drove her elbow backward. The man grunted. She twisted free, seized the metal flashlight beneath the desk, and swung. The beam flickered on as the flashlight connected with a shoulder. Dante stood beside her. His expression had not changed, but one hand pressed against his ribs. "That was you?" she asked. "You hit hard. You grabbed me in the dark. I moved you away from the window." A gunshot shattered the lobby's front glass. Dante pulled Mara down, a second before the bullet tore through the wall behind her. For 3 heartbeats, neither spoke. Then the emergency lights glowed red. Vittorio was gone. The revolving doors turned slowly. Rain blew across the marble floor. The brass key remained on the counter, but a dark smear stained its teeth. Blood. Dante rose and offered Mara his hand. She stood without taking it. His gaze sharpened, not offended, assessing. "You pressed the alarm," he said. "It's my job. You struck a man twice your size. That wasn't my job." A faint shift touched the corner of his mouth. It vanished before it became a smile. Mara looked toward the street. The dark sedan was gone. "We need the police." No. A gun was fired into your hotel. My security team will handle it. A man who is supposed to be dead just walked into my lobby and claimed my father gave him a key to a room that doesn't exist. Dante's eyes returned to the brass key. Room 907 exists. Mara folded her arms. I've worked here for 4 years. The 9th floor ends at 906. That is what the floor plan says. He picked up the key with a handkerchief from his pocket. The blood had already begun to dry. Who was he? Mara asked. Dante studied the key, turning it beneath the red emergency light. A mistake I buried. That sounds very dramatic. It wasn't meant to. The elevators restarted with a soft mechanical hum. Dante pressed the call button. Mara stayed behind the desk. He looked over his shoulder. You're coming with me. No. Vittorio used your father's name. That gives me a reason to call the police, not follow you into a hidden room. If the police arrive, the first officer through that door will report to the man who fired the shot. Mara's fingers tightened around the flashlight. Dante watched her reaction carefully. You knew someone was outside, she said. I suspected. And you still came into the lobby. I didn't know you would be here. I'm the night clerk. I'm always here. I know that now. The elevator opened. Inside, a man lay unconscious against the mirrored wall. Mara recognized him as Mr. Lyle, the hotel's night security guard. His uniform shirt had been cut open. A small black symbol had been drawn over his heart in ink. A crown split down the center. Dante crouched beside him and checked his pulse. Alive, he said. Mara reached for the emergency phone. Dante caught her hand, not roughly, but firmly enough to stop her. Look at his collar. A thin wire had been sewn through the fabric. At its end sat a glass capsule, no larger than a grain of rice. Mara stared. A transmitter, she asked. Microphone. Dante removed it with a pocket knife and crushed it beneath his shoe. Only then did he release her. Mara knelt and checked Mr. Lyle's pupils. He needs a hospital. I'll have a doctor waiting downstairs. You have a doctor who makes hotel calls at 2 in the morning. I have many people who answer their phones. The answer should have sounded arrogant. Instead, it sounded tired. Mara looked at the black symbol again. What does the crown mean? Dante's jaw tightened. It belonged to a man my father killed. The elevator doors began to close. Dante blocked them with one hand. Mara could stay in the lobby. She could call emergency services from her cell and walk away from the hotel before sunrise. She had no loyalty to Dante Valenti, no interest in secret rooms, dead financiers, or the violent history of rich men. Then she looked at the brass key in his hand. Your father. 11 years earlier, Mara had been 16 when 2 police officers arrived at her mother's apartment. Her father's car had been found at the bottom of a quarry. No body, no witnesses, no explanation for the envelope of cash hidden beneath his bed. Mara stepped into the elevator. I'm not doing this for you. Dante pressed the button for the 9th floor. I would have been disappointed if you were. The elevator climbed. On the mirrored wall, Mara saw his hand move again to his ribs. A darker patch spread across his shirt. You're bleeding. It's not serious. That's what injured men say before collapsing somewhere inconvenient. His eyes met hers in the reflection. Do you always speak to your employer this way? Only when he lies in complete sentences. This time, he almost smiled. The 9th floor was silent when the doors opened. Mara walked past 901, 903, and 905. At the end of the corridor, a large painting of the hotel hung between 905 and 906. She had passed it hundreds of times without noticing the narrow keyhole hidden inside the painted front door. Dante inserted the brass key. A lock turned inside the wall. The painting swung inward. Beyond it, a narrow passage descended into darkness. Cold air drifted upward, carrying the faint scent of dust and roses. Mara switched on her flashlight. You knew this was here. I knew there was a sealed space between the east stairwell and the old ballroom. That is not the same as knowing there's a secret staircase behind a painting. My grandfather enjoyed architecture and paranoia. They descended 12 steps. At the bottom, the passage opened into a room untouched by the hotel's renovations. Faded green wallpaper peeled from the walls. A 4-poster bed stood beneath a chandelier webbed with dust. On the nightstand sat a glass of water. Fresh condensation slid down its side. Someone had been there minutes ago. Dante drew a gun from beneath his jacket. Mara looked at him. You had that in the lobby? Yes. And you let me hit you with a flashlight. You seemed committed. A floorboard creaked behind them. Dante moved in front of Mara, weapon raised. No one appeared. Near the fireplace, an old tape recorder clicked on by itself. Static filled the room. Then a man's voice spoke. Mara knew that voice. It had faded in her memory over the years, but not enough to hide from her now. Mara, her father said through the recorder, if you're hearing this, Dante Valenti has already lied to you. Dante went utterly still. The recording continued. Do not trust him. Do not trust anyone in this hotel. Room 907 was built to hide the truth about the night your mother died. Mara's flashlight slipped lower. My mother is alive, she whispered. Dante turned toward her. From inside the wardrobe came 3 slow knocks. Dante raised his gun toward the wardrobe. Mara caught his wrist. Wait! 3 more knocks sounded from inside. Slow, deliberate. Dante lowered his voice. Move behind me. I'm not standing behind a loaded gun while you shoot through furniture. Someone is hiding in there. Then we open it. His gaze held hers for a long second. He seemed unused to being challenged, but he stepped aside. Mara approached the wardrobe. The wood smelled faintly of cedar beneath years of dust. A brass latch trembled against the door, tapping softly with each knock. She lifted it. The wardrobe opened. A boy crouched between moth-eaten coats. He could not have been older than 12. His black hair clung to his forehead, and his grey hotel uniform was several sizes too large. A red line circled one wrist where someone had tied him. He stared at Dante's gun. Please don't kill me. Dante immediately holstered it. Mara knelt. What's your name? The boy's attention shifted to her. Nico. Do you work here? He nodded. Mara had never seen him. Which department? Laundry. The laundry department doesn't hire children. I don't get paid. Dante's face hardened. Mara reached slowly toward the rope. Who tied you? Nico flinched away. It's all right, she said. I'm going to cut this. Dante handed her his knife. The blade slid through the rope. Nico rubbed his wrist, but did not climb out. He said the woman at the desk would come, the boy whispered. Mara glanced at the tape recorder. Who said that? The man with the scar. Vittorio. Dante crouched several feet away, leaving space between them. What else did he tell you? Nico looked at him and went pale. You're Dante Valenti. Yes. He said you killed his son. Silence pressed against the faded wallpaper. Mara watched Dante. No denial came. Dante rested his forearms on his knees. What was his son's name? Adrian. Something moved behind Dante's eyes. Recognition, followed by calculation. Adrian Moretti is alive, he said. Nico shook his head. Not anymore. A muffled buzzing came from one of the coats. Dante reached into the pocket and removed a cell phone. The screen showed a countdown. 0459, 0458, 0457. Mara's pulse jumped. Is that a bomb? No. Dante turned the phone over, examining it. No wires, no signal booster. The screen changed. A video appeared. Vittorio sat in a dark room, his scar catching a strip of white light. If Dante is watching this, he said, then he has found the room his family used to erase people. Dante's jaw tightened. Vittorio continued. At 3 o'clock, the city will receive proof that Dante Valenti ordered the murder of my son. His accounts will be frozen. His allies will abandon him. His enemies will come through the doors of every business he owns. The countdown resumed. 0421. 0420. Unless, Vittorio said, Mara Ellis finds the ledger hidden inside room 907 and brings it to St. Gabriel Station alone. The video ended. Mara looked at Dante. What ledger? I don't know. You expect me to believe that? No. I expect you to make your own judgment. Nico crawled out of the wardrobe. His bare feet touched the floor without a sound. Mara took off her cardigan and draped it around his shoulders. How did you get into the hotel? Through the kitchen entrance. Where are your parents? The boy looked down. Dante rose. We're leaving. No, Mara said. We're finding the ledger. Vittorio wants you isolated. He also knew my father's voice was on that tape. That recording could be fabricated. Mara pressed the play button. Her father's voice returned. Mara, if you're hearing this, Dante Valenti has already lied to you. She stopped the tape. Fabricated voices don't pause before saying my name, she said. My father always did that when he was afraid. Dante studied her, then the room. We have less than 4 minutes. Then stop arguing. They searched separately. Mara opened desk drawers filled with yellowed stationery. Dante examined the fireplace and walls. Nico stood near the door, watching them both. The nightstand contained a hotel Bible, a box of matches, and a photograph face down beneath the drawer lining. Mara pulled it free. Her father stood in front of the Belladonna Hotel, younger than she remembered, one arm around a dark-haired woman Mara had never seen. On the other side of the woman stood Dante's father. The woman was pregnant. On the back, someone had written, Elena, Thomas, and Gabriel, the last summer before the crown broke. Mara turned the photograph toward Dante. Who is Elena? He did not answer immediately. Dante. My mother. Mara looked at the smiling woman again. Dante's mother and Mara's father had stood close enough that their shoulders touched. What was my father doing with your family? Dante took the photograph carefully. Thomas Ellis worked for my father. My father repaired elevators. That was his public job. Mara felt the room tilt, though nothing moved. What did he really do? He kept records. The countdown alarm sounded from the phone. 00:05, 00:04, 00:03. Dante grabbed Mara's arm and pulled her toward the floor. The phone screen flashed white. A woman's scream filled the room. Not from the phone, from the corridor above them. Mara ran for the stairs. Dante caught up before she reached the painting. Stay behind me. She ignored him and pushed through into the 9th floor hallway. A housekeeper lay beside the elevator, one hand pressed to her cheek. Blood ran between her fingers. Mrs. Alvarez. Mara dropped beside her. Who did this? Mrs. Alvarez pointed toward room 906. He took the boy, she gasped. Mara turned. Nico was no longer behind them. The door to 906 stood open. Dante entered first. The room was empty except for a chair beneath the window. A rope lay coiled on the carpet, and rain blew through a shattered pane. On the chair sat the missing ledger. Black leather, cracked spine. A silver crown embossed on the cover. Mara approached it. Dante's voice sharpened. "Don't touch it." She stopped. A small red light blinked beneath the chair. Camera. Someone was watching. Dante moved toward the wall and pulled the curtains closed. The phone in his pocket rang. He answered without speaking. Vittorio's voice carried through the room. "You were always obedient when the trap looked expensive. Where is the boy?" "Safe, for now. You brought a child into this. So did your father." Dante's face became still. Mara heard another voice in the background. Nico crying. Vittorio continued. "Bring Mara and the ledger to St. Gabriel Station." "No." "Then the boy learns how Adrian died." The call ended. Mara picked up the ledger. Dante turned on her. "Put it down. Nico is 12, and Vittorio expects us to react emotionally. He's right. Mara, your strategy won't comfort that child." Dante stepped closer, keeping his voice low. "You don't know what's in that book. Neither do you. I know Vittorio wanted you to touch it on camera." Mara looked at the blinking light. "Why?" "To establish possession or guilt." She opened the ledger. Most of the pages contained dates, initials, and account numbers. Some entries had been crossed out in red. Near the middle, one page bore her father's full name, Thomas Ellis, custodian of evidence. Below it were 3 signatures: Gabriel Valenti, Elena Valenti, Vittorio Moretti. At the bottom, in different ink, someone had written, "Mara must never learn who paid for Claire Ellis's death." Mara stopped breathing. Claire was her mother, alive, living in Arizona, calling every Sunday. Her phone rang. The screen displayed Mom. Mara answered. Only static. Then her mother whispered, "Do not come home." A man spoke near the phone. "Mrs. Ellis, smile for your daughter." Mara heard her mother gasp. The call ended. Dante reached for the phone, but Mara pulled it away. "Where does she live?" he asked. "Why?" "To send people. Your people are the reason this is happening. My people did not take her. Your father's signature is in this book. My father is dead." So is Vittorio, apparently. Dante's restraint cracked. He turned away, one hand closing into a fist. For several seconds, the only sound was rain striking the broken window. When he faced her again, his voice was controlled. "I was 23 when Adrian Moretti disappeared. My father ordered me to bring Adrian to an abandoned warehouse. I believed we were negotiating an exchange. What happened? The building exploded before I entered. Did you see Adrian die?" "No." "Then why did Vittorio say you killed him?" "Because I was meant to." Mara looked at the ledger. A crossed-out entry near Adrian's name had been replaced with a set of coordinates and 2 initials. T.E. Thomas Ellis, her father. A knock sounded at the door. Dante pulled his gun. Mrs. Alvarez stood in the hallway, still pressing a towel to her face. She stared at the weapon, then at Mara. "The police are downstairs," she said. Dante's expression changed. "How many?" "Too many." Mara moved toward the door. Dante blocked her path. "They're not here to help. They may have my mother. They want the ledger." "You don't know that." Boots thundered in the stairwell. A voice echoed through the corridor. "Dante Valenti, come out with your hands visible." Dante pulled a second phone from his pocket and typed one message. Mara saw the recipient, Luca. The message read, "Protocol Ash, protect Claire Ellis, trust no one wearing the crown." Mara looked up. "You knew my mother's name before tonight." Dante did not answer. The police reached the 9th floor. Mrs. Alvarez stepped aside. A dozen officers filled the corridor, weapons raised. At their center stood Police Commissioner Raymond Hale, a silver-haired man who had attended charity galas in the Belladonna ballroom. His gaze went directly to the ledger in Mara's hands. "There it is," he said. Dante moved in front of her. Commissioner Hale smiled. "Miss Ellis, step away from him. Dante Valenti murdered your father." Mara's grip tightened around the book. Behind Hale, one officer lifted his sleeve to adjust his glove. A black symbol marked his wrist. A crown split down the center. Mara stared at the broken crown on the officer's wrist. Dante followed her gaze. His body shifted, not enough for Commissioner Hale to notice, but enough to place himself between Mara and every weapon in the corridor. "Put the ledger on the floor," Hale ordered. Mara looked at the officers. Some watched Dante, others watched the book. Not one watched the injured housekeeper. Mrs. Alvarez still held a blood-soaked towel against her cheek. Her eyes moved toward the service stairwell, then back to Mara. "A warning." Dante raised his hands slowly. "You arrived quickly, Commissioner. We received a report of gunfire. The shot was fired 30 minutes ago." Hale smiled. Perhaps traffic was light. Mara felt Dante's attention sharpen beside her. The commissioner had made a mistake. He had arrived too quickly to be responding to the gunshot, yet too late to have been nearby by chance. Hale extended one hand. "The ledger, Miss Ellis." "What's inside it?" Mara asked. "Evidence." "Of what?" 20 years of murder, bribery, and organized crime." "Then why aren't you wearing gloves?" His smile disappeared. Mara opened the ledger. Several officers adjusted their grips. Dante spoke without looking at her. "Careful." She scanned the page bearing her father's name. Beneath the signatures, tiny numbers had been written along the margin. They looked like account references, but one pattern repeated after every third line. 907. A code. Hale took one step forward. "Close the book." Mara tore the page out. The corridor erupted. Hale shouted. Dante moved. He seized Mara around the waist and drove them both through the open door of room 906 as bullets ripped into the frame. Mrs. Alvarez dropped to the carpet. The chandelier above the corridor exploded, showering glass across the officers. Dante kicked the door shut and overturned the heavy desk against it. "Bathroom," he said. Mara grabbed his sleeve. "Mrs. Alvarez is out there." She created the distraction. She could be shot. She knew the risk. That doesn't make it acceptable. The door shook under the first impact. Dante cupped the back of Mara's neck, forcing her eyes to his. "If they take you, your mother dies. If they take the page, every person named on it disappears before sunrise." His grip was firm, but his thumb rested lightly below her ear. "Move." They ran into the bathroom. Dante kicked open the maintenance panel beneath the sink, revealing a narrow shaft lined with pipes. Mara stared at it. "You have hidden passages in the bathrooms too." "My grandfather distrusted ordinary doors." The bedroom door splintered. Dante pushed Mara into the shaft and followed. They crawled through darkness while Boots entered the suite behind them. At the end, a metal grate opened above the hotel laundry room. Dante lowered himself first, then reached for her. Mara ignored his hand and jumped. She landed badly. Pain shot through her ankle, but she stayed upright. Dante noticed. "Can you walk?" "Yes." "You're limping." "I can limp quickly." They crossed between rows of industrial washing machines. Steam clouded the air, turning every doorway into a blurred shape. Mara unfolded the torn ledger page. The signatures had bled through from the front, but the reverse side held a faint indentation. She placed the paper against a steel table and rubbed the side of a pencil over it. Words emerged. "St. Gabriel, Locker 314. Dante read over her shoulder. "Vittorio's meeting place," he said. And whatever he wants may be in the locker. Or it's another trap. It can be both. A dryer door slammed somewhere behind them. Dante drew his gun. Mara picked up a heavy iron used for pressing linens. A figure emerged through the steam. Mrs. Alvarez. Blood covered the side of her uniform, but she was moving. Mara rushed toward her. "You're hurt." "Not mine." Mrs. Alvarez dropped the stained towel. A small pistol was hidden beneath it. Dante did not lower his weapon. "How long have you worked for Hale?" Mrs. Alvarez's face went still. Mara stepped between them. "She helped us. She gave them access to the 9th floor." "I gave them what they expected," Mrs. Alvarez said, a frightened housekeeper. Her accent had changed. The warmth Mara knew was gone, replaced by crisp, controlled English. Mrs. Alvarez pulled a keycard from her pocket and tossed it to Dante. "The underground garage is compromised. Your driver is dead." Mara's stomach tightened. "Who are you?" The woman looked at her. "Your father called me Sophia." Mara's fingers closed around the torn page. "My father knew you. He saved my life." "When?" "The night your mother died." Mara took a step closer. "My mother is alive." Sophia's expression softened with something that looked almost like grief. "The woman who raised you is alive." The laundry machines continued to turn. Water churned behind round glass doors. Sheets rolled over one another, white folding into white. Mara heard the words again. "The woman who raised you." Dante's gaze moved to Sophia. "Not here. I've spent 11 years waiting for her to ask the right question. She just did." A buzzer sounded above the service exit. Someone had entered the laundry corridor. Sophia handed Mara the pistol. Mara refused it. "Answer me." Sophia reached into her uniform and removed a silver necklace. A tiny crescent moon hung from the chain. Mara had seen it before. It was in the photograph from room 907, resting against the pregnant woman's throat. Dante's mother. "Elena Valenti wore this," Mara whispered. Sophia nodded. "Elena gave it to your father the night she disappeared." Mara looked at Dante. His face had lost all color. "My mother died in a car accident," he said. "No," Sophia replied. "A woman died in her car." The service door opened. Sophia fired twice. A man fell backward into the corridor. "Questions later," she said. "St. Gabriel Station closes its eastern platform at 4. Vittorio chose it because no cameras operate there." Dante picked up the fallen man's weapon. "Can you get us out?" Sophia pointed to a linen cart. "Try not to look dignified." Minutes later, Mara lay beneath layers of hotel sheets while Sophia pushed the cart through the kitchen. Dante moved beside them, wearing the dead man's jacket and cap pulled low across his face. Voices crackled through radios. Hale had sealed every exit. At the loading dock, a police officer lifted one corner of the sheets. Mara held her breath. From somewhere above, the fire alarm began to ring. Sprinklers opened across the kitchen. Employees shouted. Steam burst from an oven as water struck hot metal. In the confusion, Sophia drove the cart into the officer's knees. Dante caught him before he hit the floor and lowered him behind a stack of crates. They escaped through the delivery entrance into an alley flooded with rain. A motorcycle waited beneath the awning. One motorcycle. Mara looked at Dante. "That's your escape plan. It wasn't designed for company." Sophia handed him the keys. "Take her to the station. I'll find Claire." "Bring her to the safe house on Mercer," Dante said. Sophia's gaze hardened. "Mercer belongs to Luca." Dante went still. "So?" "Luca has been feeding Hale information for 3 months." Mara remembered the message Dante had sent. "Luca, protect Claire Ellis." Dante pulled out his phone. No response. Sophia climbed into a parked delivery van. Go. Dante mounted the motorcycle. Mara hesitated. You can stay, he said, but Hale will search every building in this district. That almost sounded like concern. It was a fact. She climbed behind him. The motorcycles surged into the rain. Mara held the rail beneath the seat rather than Dante, until he turned sharply to avoid a police cruiser. Her arms locked around his waist. Blood had soaked through his shirt. His injury was worse than he admitted. They crossed the city in silence, cutting through alleys and underpasses, while sirens multiplied behind them. At St. Gabriel Station, Dante left the motorcycle inside an abandoned maintenance tunnel. The eastern platform was empty. Rainwater dripped through cracks in the ceiling. The old departure board clicked through destinations for trains that no longer ran. Locker 314 waited near the end of the platform. Mara inserted the brass key from room 907. It fit. Inside sat a red children's backpack, Nico's. Mara pulled it open. A small recorder lay on top of folded clothes. Beneath them were photographs of Adrian Moretti taken over the last decade. Adrian outside a hospital. Adrian entering City Hall. Adrian shaking hands with Commissioner Hale. In the most recent photograph, Adrian stood beside Luca, Dante's most trusted man. On the back, a date had been written. Yesterday. Adrian is alive, Mara said. Dante examined the photographs. He's not Vittorio's hostage. He's his partner. The station speakers crackled. A child's voice echoed across the empty platform. Mara? Nico stepped from behind a pillar. She ran toward him. Dante caught her arm. The boy was no longer barefoot. He wore polished black shoes and a dry coat. No rope marked his wrists. Nico looked past Mara to Dante. You took too long. The far tunnel filled with light. A train approached, though the eastern line had been closed for years. Its brakes screamed as it entered the station. The doors opened. Vittorio stood inside. Beside him was Claire Ellis, Mara's mother, pale but unharmed. And behind them stood Luca. His gun was pressed against Sophia's neck. Vittorio smiled. Now, he said, we can stop pretending Mara Ellis is Thomas's daughter. Mara heard the train doors close behind Vittorio. The sound was soft, final. Rainwater dripped from the station ceiling onto the yellow safety line. Each drop struck at a different rhythm, filling the silence no one seemed willing to break. Claire stood inside the train, with her hands clasped in front of her. No bruises, no restraints, no fear. Mara looked from her mother to Vittorio. What did you say? Vittorio stepped onto the platform. I said Thomas Ellis was not your father. Dante moved closer to Mara without touching her. Blood darkened the side of his shirt, but his gun remained steady in his hand. Luca pressed his weapon more firmly beneath Sophia's jaw. Lower it, Dante. Dante's eyes did not leave Luca. You taught me to shoot, and you learned too well. You sold the hotel. I sold information. To Hale. To whoever paid enough. Sophia's gaze shifted toward Mara. Not fear. Instruction. Her left hand hung loose beside her hip. 2 fingers opened, then closed. Wait. Mara forced herself to look back at Claire. The woman who had braided her hair before school. The woman who had worked double shifts in a pharmacy and still packed handwritten notes into Mara's lunches. The woman who had sat beside her hospital bed after an appendectomy and refused to sleep. You're my mother, Mara said. Claire's lips trembled. Yes. Vittorio tilted his head. That depends on which truth she chooses. Mara walked toward the train. Dante caught her elbow. She pulled free. Vittorio smiled. She has always been brave. You don't know me. I knew you before you were born. He reached inside his coat. Dante raised his gun. Vittorio stopped and slowly withdrew a folded document. A birth certificate. He held it toward Mara. She did not take it. Read the names, he said. Claire closed her eyes. Mara unfolded the paper. The ink had faded, but the writing remained legible. Mother, Elena Valenti. Father, Adrian Moretti. Mara read it twice. Then a third time. A sharp laugh escaped her, thin and empty. Adrian was a teenager. 19, Vittorio said. And Elena was married to Gabriel Valenti. Yes. Mara looked at Dante. He had gone still. If the document was real, she was his half-sister by family, though not by blood. Number. Elena had been his mother. Mara's stomach turned. Dante read the answer on her face before she spoke. We're not related, he said. His voice was controlled, but the relief beneath it was unmistakable. Vittorio watched them both with interest. Elena was unable to have another child after Dante, he said. Gabriel needed an heir he could control. Adrian needed a way out of the Moretti family. Elena believed she could save them both. Save them by hiding a baby? Mara asked. By exposing what their families had built. Vittorio pointed toward the ledger page in her hand. Elena collected evidence. Thomas protected it. Claire carried you out of the hotel the night Gabriel discovered the affair. Mara looked at Claire. You knew. Claire's eyes filled. I knew enough to keep you alive. Every birthday? Yes. Every time I asked why Dad had no family photographs? Yes. Every Sunday call when you told me nothing was wrong. Claire took one step forward. I wanted you to have a life untouched by them. Vittorio's expression hardened. She wanted you ignorant. She raised me. She stole you. Claire flinched. Mara saw it. Guilt. Real and old. Behind Vittorio, Nico climbed onto a train seat and swung his polished shoes above the floor. He watched the adults with the bored patience of someone who had already heard the story. Mara pointed to him. Who is the boy? Vittorio glanced back. My grandson. The answer struck Dante harder than the blood loss had. Adrian's son? Yes. Nico told us Adrian was dead. Nico tells people what keeps them alive. The boy stopped swinging his feet. Vittorio's voice softened when he spoke to him. Show her. Nico reached into his coat and removed a silver pendant. The broken crown. On its reverse side, a name had been engraved. Nicholas Moretti. Mara remembered the rope marks, the oversized uniform, the terror inside the wardrobe. All rehearsed. You weren't kidnapped, she said. Nico looked down. No. You watched Mrs. Alvarez get hurt. His expression shifted. That wasn't supposed to happen. Sophia's mouth tightened. Plans often sound cleaner before blood touches them. Luca struck her across the face with the gun. Mara moved instinctively. Dante blocked her with one arm. His eyes remained on Luca. Do that again, he said, and you won't leave the station. Luca smiled. You're bleeding through your shirt, Dante. You still have only one bullet before I reach you. The smile faded. Vittorio raised his hand. Enough. Mara has a choice to make. The train lights flickered. Across the platform, the old departure board began clicking, one letter at a time. Mara Ellis became Mara Moretti. Then, return the ledger. Mara looked toward the control booth. Someone else was inside the station. Vittorio saw her notice. Hale is coming, he said. He wants the book. Adrian wants the city. Dante wants revenge. Claire wants forgiveness. And what do you want? My family restored. You used a child as bait. I used an heir as a witness. You threatened my mother. I protected her from Luca. Luca gave a quiet laugh. Vittorio did not look at him. That told Mara more than the words. He did not trust Luca either. Another open door. Another alliance waiting to break. Mara folded the birth certificate and put it into her pocket. The ledger isn't here. Vittorio's face changed. Dante looked at her. Mara held up the torn page. This is all I took. Vittorio stepped closer. Where is the book? In room 906. Luca swore. Vittorio turned on him. You were told to retrieve it. Hale reached the floor first. Then Hale has it, Dante said. The station lights went out. Gunfire erupted from the far stairwell. Dante pulled Mara behind a pillar as bullets struck the train windows. Glass burst inward. Claire screamed and dropped between the seats. Sophia twisted beneath Luca's arm and drove her heel into his knee. His shot went wide. Dante fired once. Luca collapsed against the train door, clutching his shoulder. Men in police tactical gear poured onto the platform. Commissioner Hale walked behind them without a helmet. He carried the black ledger. There are too many criminals in one place, he called. It saves paperwork. Vittorio drew a pistol and fired toward the officers. The station became smoke, sparks, and ricocheting metal. Dante pushed Mara toward the maintenance tunnel. Go. I'm not leaving Claire. She's inside steel. So are Hale's men. Dante grabbed the back of her coat as a bullet struck the pillar where her head had been. His restraint was gone. You cannot help her if you die. Mara looked through the shattered train windows. Claire crawled toward Nico. Vittorio fired from behind a bench. Sophia dragged Luca by his wounded arm and used him as cover. Hale remained near the stairs, holding the ledger beneath his coat. He had come for one thing. Mara understood. She pulled the brass key from her pocket and threw it across the platform. It struck the concrete near Hale. The commissioner looked down. Room 907. His men followed his gaze. Vittorio stopped firing. For 1 second, every person in the station wanted the same object. Mara ran. Not toward the tunnel, toward Hale. Dante cursed and followed. Hale reached for the key. Mara kicked it beneath the train. The commissioner grabbed her by the hair. Dante hit him with enough force to send both men into the side of the carriage. The ledger fell. Mara seized it. Hale's nearest officer aimed at her. Sophia fired first. The officer dropped. Move, Sophia shouted. Mara climbed onto the train. Claire pulled her inside. Nico crouched beneath a seat, hands pressed over his ears. Vittorio jumped aboard as the doors began closing. Dante remained outside, fighting Hale. Dante. He looked at Mara through the narrowing gap. Go. The train moved. Mara slammed her hands against the door. Dante disappeared behind them as the platform slid into darkness. Vittorio staggered against a pole. Blood spread across his chest. Claire caught him before he fell. For the first time, fear entered his face. Not for himself, for the ledger in Mara's hands. Open page 97, he said. Mara did. A sealed envelope had been attached inside. On the front, her father had written, "For Mara, when Dante Valenti chooses her life over his own." Her hands began to shake. Claire stared at the handwriting. Thomas wrote that the night he died. Mara tore open the envelope. Inside was a photograph of Dante, at 23, standing outside the burned warehouse where Adrian had supposedly died. On the back, Dante did not kill Adrian. He saved him. Adrian ordered the explosion. Below the message was a second line. Adrian Moretti arranged Elena Valenti's murder. Vittorio saw the words. His face collapsed. No. Mara turned the photograph toward him. Your son killed my mother. He loved her. He used her. No. Nico looked up from beneath the seat. Grandfather. Vittorio pressed one blood-covered hand against the page. Adrian told me Gabriel discovered them. He said Gabriel ordered the crash. Claire shook her head. Thomas found the payment records. Adrian hired Hale. The train entered another tunnel. Darkness swept over the windows. Vittorio sagged onto a seat. For years, he had built his revenge around the wrong man. Mara thought of Dante alone on the platform. Hale's men surrounding him. Luca wounded but alive. The train began to slow. Claire looked through the window. This line has no other station. The lights inside the carriage turned red. A voice came through the speaker. Calm, male, familiar. Hello, Mara. Vittorio lifted his head. Nico stood. Claire went pale. The voice continued. My father has lied to you enough. The train emerged into an underground terminal filled with armed men. At its center stood Adrian Moretti, alive, unscarred, smiling. Beside him, Dante knelt on the concrete with his hands bound behind his back. Adrian rested a gun against the back of Dante's head. Bring me the ledger, he said, or watch the last innocent Valenti die. Mara stepped off the train carrying the ledger. Adrian Moretti stood beneath a row of industrial lights, immaculate in a navy suit. He looked younger than Vittorio, softer around the mouth, but the resemblance was unmistakable. The same confidence, the same certainty that every person in the room was a piece already placed on his board. Dante knelt 10 feet away. Blood ran from his temple, his hands were tied behind his back, but his posture remained straight. When he saw Mara, anger moved across his face. Not fear. Anger that she had come. Adrian pressed the gun more firmly against his head. Set the ledger down. Mara stopped beyond the yellow line painted across the concrete. Vittorio came out of the train behind her, one hand pressed to his wound. Adrian. His son looked at him without warmth. You should be dead. So should you. I learned from you. Nico moved toward Adrian. Claire caught the back of the boy's coat. Adrian's eyes narrowed. Let him go. Nico looked between them. Dad? The word broke something in Vittorio's face. Adrian did not lower his weapon. Come here, Nicholas. The boy took one step. Mara blocked his path. Adrian smiled. You've known him for less than an hour. That was long enough to learn you use him. I prepared him. You tied him inside a wardrobe. A performance. You let him believe people would die if he made a mistake. He is a Moretti. He is 12. Nico lowered his head. Adrian's smile vanished. Put down the ledger. Mara looked at Dante. His gaze dropped briefly to the floor between them. A dark line ran beneath Adrian's shoes. Fuel. The terminal smelled of oil because the concrete had been soaked. A trap beneath a trap. Mara lowered the ledger but kept one hand on it. What happens after you get it? Hale loses his leverage. My father loses his mythology. Dante loses his empire. And you inherit everything. I restore what should have been mine. Vittorio staggered closer. You told me Gabriel killed Elena. Adrian's expression did not change. He would have. You paid Hale. Adrian looked at the photograph still clutched in Mara's hand. Understanding reached him. Then, irritation. Thomas should have burned with the warehouse. Claire flinched. Vittorio stared at his son. You ordered the crash. Elena was going to expose us. She loved you. She loved the idea of saving me. Vittorio's hand began to shake. For years he had carried grief like a weapon. Now there was nowhere left to point it except at the man he had built his life around. Adrian saw the change. "Father, don't become sentimental now. You let me blame Dante. I needed your war. You let me bury an empty coffin. I needed your rage." Vittorio's breath came shallow and wet. "You used me." Adrian smiled faintly. "You taught me." The terminal doors opened behind the armed men. Commissioner Hale entered with Luca at his side. Luca's wounded arm hung in a sling fashioned from torn fabric. His other hand held a pistol. Hale looked at Adrian. "The ledger." Adrian laughed. "You arrived late. I brought the city." Sirens echoed somewhere above them. Hale had not come alone. Neither had he come to help. Every alliance had reached its expiration. Mara glanced at Dante again. His right hand had shifted behind his back. A thin piece of metal flashed between his fingers. He was cutting the restraint. Adrian noticed Mara watching him. He pulled the trigger. The chamber clicked. Empty. Dante surged upward. He drove his shoulder into Adrian's chest, and both men hit the concrete. Gunfire exploded across the terminal. Vittorio dragged Nico behind the train. Claire pulled Mara down as bullets struck the carriage. Luca fired at Hale. Hale fired back. The armed men split, half following Adrian's orders and half turning toward the commissioner. The terminal became a war between men who had trusted greed longer than one another. Mara crawled toward the ledger. A bullet tore through its cover. Pages scattered across the floor. Account numbers, names, dates, signatures. The secrets everyone had killed to possess lifted into the air like black-edged birds. Hale lunged for them. Sophia appeared behind him. Her face was bruised, but her hand was steady. She pressed a gun to the back of his neck. "Raymond." Hale froze. Sophia's voice carried 11 years of waiting. "Thomas told you the evidence would survive him." Hale slowly raised his hands. "You won't shoot me." "No." She looked past him. Mara followed her gaze. A red light blinked above the terminal entrance. Security camera. Recording. Mara understood, then let him speak. Sophia took Hale's weapon and shoved him toward the scattered pages. Mara lifted one containing Elena's name. "You arranged her death." Hale looked toward Adrian. Adrian was still fighting Dante near the fuel line. "He paid me," Hale said. "Say his name." Hale's mouth tightened. Sophia cocked the gun. "Adrian Moretti." Vittorio closed his eyes. Mara held up another page. "And Thomas Ellis?" Hale laughed bitterly. Thomas wouldn't stop digging. Adrian ordered the warehouse explosion, but Thomas survived. Luca finished the job at the quarry. Dante heard him. He turned toward Luca. Luca had spent years at his side, guarded his doors, shared his table, accepted his trust. Luca lifted his gun. "I was following your father's orders." "My father was dead by then." Luca hesitated. That was answer enough. Dante crossed the distance between them. Luca fired. Vittorio moved first. He stepped into the bullet. The impact spun him around. Nico screamed. Dante disarmed Luca with one brutal strike and drove him to the floor. Vittorio collapsed beside the train. Nico crawled to him. "Grandfather." Vittorio touched the boy's face with blood-covered fingers. "You tell the truth now." Nico sobbed. "I'm sorry. I know. You said Morettis don't apologize. I was wrong about many things." His gaze found Dante. For a moment, the old hatred returned. Then it faded. "You saved Adrian." Dante stood over Luca, breathing hard. "Yes." I punished you for it? Yes. Vittorio looked at Mara. You are Elena's daughter. Claire knelt beside her. Vittorio's eyes moved between them. But she is your mother. Claire's face crumpled. Mara took Vittorio's hand. You can still tell the police everything. A weak smile touched his mouth. The police are already listening. He looked toward the camera. Then his hand went still. Nico bowed over him. Across the terminal, Adrian shoved Dante backward and seized a fallen weapon. Mara saw the fuel beneath his shoes. She saw the flare device clipped inside his jacket. He had never intended to escape with witnesses. Dante! Adrian pulled the flare. Mara threw the brass key. It struck his wrist. The flare fell. Dante kicked it across the floor. It skidded beneath the train, sparks spitting inches from the fuel. Claire dragged Nico toward the doors. Sophia forced Hale ahead of her. Dante seized Adrian by the collar. Move. Adrian laughed. You won't kill me. No. Dante looked toward the approaching officers. I'm going to let you live long enough to lose everything. He dragged Adrian across the yellow line as the flare ignited the fuel. Fire raced beneath the train. The explosion lifted the rear carriage from the tracks. Mara hit the floor. Dante covered her with his body as glass and metal rained across the terminal. For several seconds, the world became heat and ringing silence. Then, Mara felt Dante's weight shift. He pushed himself up. Blood ran along his jaw. You came back, she said. You threw a key at an armed man. It worked. It was reckless. You crossed a burning platform. That was strategic. Despite the smoke, despite the sirens, despite everything behind them, Mara laughed. Dante stared at her, as though the sound had reached a place no one else could. Then he touched her cheek, not claiming, not demanding, simply making certain she was there. Police officers flooded the terminal. This time, they wore state insignia. Sophia handed Hale over with the recording still running. Adrian was dragged away, shouting names, threats, and promises no one believed anymore. Luca followed in handcuffs. The surviving pages of the ledger were collected beneath cameras, too public now to disappear. By dawn, Commissioner Hale's confession had reached every major news network. The accounts named in the ledger were frozen. Judges, executives, officers, and politicians were arrested before they could leave the city. Room 907 was sealed as a crime scene. 3 weeks later, Mara returned to the Belladonna. The front windows had been repaired. The marble gleamed. Guests crossed the lobby beneath the chandelier as if dead men had never walked there. Mrs. Alvarez, Sophia, stood near the desk in an actual housekeeping uniform. You could retire, Mara told her. I dislike gardening. Claire waited in the café with Nico. She had begun the process of becoming his legal guardian while Adrian awaited trial. The boy still lied when he was frightened. Now he usually admitted it 10 minutes later. Mara stepped behind the front desk. Dante emerged from the elevator. No bodyguards. No gun visible. His empire had survived, though several businesses had not. He had opened every account to federal investigators and sold the properties connected to his father's crimes. The newspapers called it surrender. Mara knew better. It was the first decision he had made without protecting a throne. He placed something on the counter. The restored brass key. The city released it, he said. It belongs in evidence. The room doesn't exist on any legal floor plan. Convenient. I'm having it rebuilt. Mara raised an eyebrow. As another secret room. As an archive, Thomas's records, Elena's letters, everything the families tried to bury. She turned the key over in her hand. And the name? The Ellis Valenti Foundation. Mara looked up. Dante's expression remained careful, but his fingers tightened once against the counter. You put my name first. You earned it. Respect had come first. Then trust. Protection. Understanding. Sacrifice. Neither of them needed to name what had followed. Mara placed the key between them. What happens when the hotel clerk discovers the owner has been hiding sentimental intentions? He denies everything. And when she has evidence, Dante leaned closer. Then he asks whether she intends to use it against him. Mara closed the distance. The kiss was quiet. No audience. No promises made too quickly. Only the warmth of his hand at her waist, and the certainty that he would release her the instant she stepped away. She did not. Across the lobby, the elevator chimed. Nico ran out, carrying an envelope. This was behind the desk. Mara opened it. Inside was a photograph of Thomas, Elena, Claire, and a much younger Sophia, standing in room 907. On the back, Thomas had written, "Truth is not what survives. Truth is what someone chooses to protect." Mara handed the photograph to Dante. He read it, then looked toward the restored hotel doors as morning light spread across the marble. For the first time, nothing waited in the shadows. Mara took his hand. Together, they walked into the light.